evening. Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we're on Don Jamieson. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Well, I'm glad I can have you. It's always weird to talk to somebody who's been watching on TV or YouTube or whatever, and then have them in front of you, be interacting with them. So it's got that weird dimension to it. No matter how many people I've spoken to, hundreds, it's just the oddest.
Yeah, well, for 14 seasons of that metal show, I sat across from all my childhood idols, um, pretty much. And it's true. I mean, even though a lot of them have become friends now, I still pinch myself, that I could text this person or email that person,
Yeah.
because as a fan, you never lose that part of you. I'm still in awe of all their talents. So even though they're friends, when I see them in performance mode, I'm a kid again.
I think, and I mean, you may get this. I get this on a much lower level. That people go like, "Well, how can you talk to this person?" Because, like you, I've probably not as many, but I can talk to people off air. I'm like, you just talk to them. I have a respect for their music. I mean, when you meet them, I don't think I've met very rare people that just aren't awesome. Like, there's a reason why they are successful. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
hardworking and they're great people.
I agree. We're so lucky. The music scene that we love. It's true. 99% of the people are way cool. And yeah, I mean, look, we all, obviously, you're a supporter of this scene. I'm sure you do your prep and all that. But the best hangs and talks with people are just, you make a plan and then you don't stick by it at all. It just happens. And
I don't
those
even have a
are always
plan.
the best interviews. What's that?
Like, I don't even have a plan. I have a plan. We'll talk about your album. I've listened to it. It's great. But I've been watching you for years. Like most of everybody I talk to, I've been a fan of. I don't need to. It's a conversation,
Yeah.
and that's what it comes down to. So you have a new album coming out. Pretty funny. Fifth album, Metal Blade. Not a lot of people stay with the same label anyhow. So the fact that Metal Blade kind of took you in early, and I think I've what was it was like it's just you and Jim are the only ones on that label too, still for comedy.
Yeah. And Jim Brewer did one album that was sort of a hybrid comedy and with a band thing that
Yeah,
was awesome. But yeah, Jim Florentine and I are the two comics remaining on Metal Blade. And yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way. I've been with them since like 20. I think I signed my deal there in 2011. So yeah, all these years later, 5 albums later, still doing it. But let's face it, Sean, I'm a tax write-off over there.
maybe not. It's an they have. I I don't know if it's tax write up, probably, but I mean, like in the big picture things, like don't you do things as a labor of love? I mean, mostly everything I do this show like is a labor of love. So clearly they believe in you. Brian believes in you, and most of Metal Blade started as a labor of love. So that's what you are. I mean, and your comedy, Jim's fits with the metal scene. I've been listening to your albums for years. This album just keeps hitting home, and we'll talk about some of it without talking about the jokes. But I mean, the content you've had to roll with and be creative with and balance metal was very interesting. Being a comedian and doing the metal world and kind of dance between the two.
Yeah.
At this point, has it gotten like easier for you?
Oh, well, thanks, man. The thing I think that struck Brian with me initially was, I was out on the road opening for one of his bands, Charred Walls of the Damned, which, if people are
Uh,
unfamiliar, Tim Ripper Owens
and the
singing.
drummer is oh, what's his name? The drummer from Howard
Come on,
Stern.
Sean. Come on. Richard Christie.
Thank you. I would have
Yeah.
gotten it. I just had a block. I knew who it was though. He was an Iced Earth before things went belly up.
Yeah, and just a really heavy band, and Brian came
Yeah,
to a couple of the shows, and he's like, man, he goes, I I remember comedians opening for bands years ago, but I never seen a comedian open for a really heavy band, and I didn't, I was just friends with those guys. I didn't know any better. I was just, it was just like a chance to party for 2 weeks with my friends. But then, a lot of people started asking me after that. Obviously, Brian signed me, and then I said, oh boy, all right, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this for real. And I really kind of created a whole separate act just for opening for bands. Now you could do
hmm
some of that in comedy club settings, but you can't
right.
go real deep with a lot of stuff. So it I have to include it on all my records. Because it's such a big part of my life, it would be weird not to talk about it on
Right.
stage.
Well, you've gotten bigger too, so it's almost like it's become part of your identity. Like because I know like listening to your earlier albums, there has been a change and like a growth. It's sort of same topics, but you do it in a way where your jokes are a couple different extra layers now, where they kind of come back at you. I've seen, it was good before, but I'm saying, but as a fan, I've watched you progress too, you know, which is kind
Yeah,
of fun to see.
no, again, thank you. I put, because people always ask me about comedy in 2024, and with, everybody's
Oh,
so
a nightmare.
hypersensitive about things. And I go, yeah, I guess in a way, but before this, as a performer, you still have to grow. And the
Hmm.
fun thing now is those layers, yes, is you can get away with the same stuff, but you do it a little more subtly so that you have people laughing at stuff that's completely directed at them, but it's sort of the underlying layer of the main joke. And so
Right.
you get away with a little bit more that way. And that does make your comedy better because it's not just, I used to be very rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. And now it's a sort of like take my time a little bit more, really. Obviously, you want every joke to get a laugh, but there's a little hidden meaning underneath each one. And yeah,
Right.
this to me is the best album I've done, the best material I've done, and now I got to start all over again once this comes out.
That's gotta be a nightmare. I mean, it's gotta be hard for like a comedian to do that. I mean, there's so many like being a comedian feels like the most nightmare, not funny job ever because like when you meet people, they're like, "Oh, you're a comedian? Tell me a joke." Or like you have to perform cold in front of a group of people that it's so weird. This audience to get an audience for a comedian unless it's a comedy crowd, you know. So you're always just kind of proving yourself, no matter how far along you are, you know. And then your jokes can be somewhat now. It's now is either offensive or not offensive, you know. And and I think on this album, which is really great, is I feel like you were trying to kind of keep a leg to bust on everybody on both sides of the fence. You weren't really
Mm-hmm.
trying to take it aside, which is kind of the best way to go. Because if you're just poking at everybody, you're poking at both presidents, you're poking, like you're making life funny. It doesn't feel like you're just attacking.
Yeah, that's super important, man. And Sean, I'm grateful that you listened to the record and because you really nailed it.
Yeah, yeah,
I want everybody to laugh at this stuff. I make fun of everybody on this album: younger people, older people, LGBTQ plus, trans, black people. Everybody gets made fun of, but it's not a personal attack. I don't want to be the get off my lawn guy up on stage. You
right.
kids don't know how it is. No, this is comedy in 2024. You want to be relevant, but you want to also send the message. Could you read between the lines and figure me out? Of course you can.
Right.
But a plumber who just worked 60 hours, who just wanted to relax on a Friday night, had his wife or girlfriend talk him into coming down to the stupid comedy club. And I better make this guy laugh, okay? Because that's what they're there for. That's what they paid for. They
Right.
don't need a lecture, especially from me.
And either side of it, though, like you could either side, you can upset. The problem is, it's so, people get upset either way now. So like you're not like in the back. You had to make a good joke back in the '80s or '90s, back then of comedy. Now you're like, you don't know which dick is going to offend anybody. So it's even harder for you to try to be funny to both sides, because
Yeah.
there is a division now. I mean, like it or not. So you've got to cater
Yeah.
to both of them. And I mean, you do really well on this album. So I mean, it's obviously it's you've been doing it long enough where you got your skills have been sharpened in, you know. But I couldn't imagine starting over nowadays. I mean,
Well, I mean, for me, just starting over with a whole new set, because as opposed to a band puts out a new album, they want to play
right,
the new songs. When a comic puts out an album, it's like, the rabbit's out of the hat, like in magic. It's
yeah,
like, once you know the punchlines, the magic of the joke is kind of over. Now, people have their favorites that they like
right.
to hear over and over again, sure, like a favorite song. But for the most part, now is my uphill climb to, get another 45 minutes to an hour for the next record, and if there'll be a next record, hopefully. But yeah,
It
man,
should be. This is a good
I want,
album.
like I said, this stuff is battle tested in front of comedy club crowds, rock crowds, theater crowds, college crowds. So I think this stuff's pretty good.
I agree. I mean, I would have done this. I mean, I've talked to you, but we just came across my mailbox, and I put people on the show because I want to. I don't get anything out of this, except it's not my thing. So if I really dig something, I want it on here. So I really believe in the album. That's why I'm talking to you and promoting it. So I think it's good. I don't see why you wouldn't do more. And I can't imagine starting fresh all over again. Sounds pretty daunting. Just like
Yeah,
so you have to go
takes
out
a
and like
couple
write
years.
jokes, like as you go, like the old stuff and new at clubs, or pop in and kind of build it again.
Yeah, yeah, but like pretty much like tonight I got a gig here in Jersey where I live at my home club. So I feel a little more comfortable there trying to squeeze in some new stuff. And then, you eventually you go, okay, that joke works. I'll take this old one out. And then but it takes a couple years, it's a long process. So um, that's just the name of the game. And I like keeping it fresh anyway. I don't like, sticking with the same thing. I mean, I tend to gravitate around similar topics sometimes, but ACDC only plays three chords, so I'm like the ACDC of comedians.
I like to call myself the John Goodman of podcasting, so I think we have a thing going here.
That's good. We should team up.
We should. But what's really good is I think when you do this though, I mean, I imagine you, and I could be wrong, see a topic and say that's a good idea, but I'm not happy with the way it's being put out there. I'm going to tackle that topic now if I put my spin on it. As a comedian, because I feel like there's so many things out there you can do and pop up, but it feels like you've covered things that are obviously we talk about are very relevant, but you're kind of putting a different spin on it. I'm saying like it's a working joke. It's got you know that's what it feels like you're doing with the jokes. You're kind of like building off of things that you see, and maybe you want to make it a little better.
Well, that's the thing is most comics really we do kind of all talk about the same stuff. It's just your point of view. What way can I come at this topic that nobody else is doing? And that's the difference between comedians. Like we're all going to talk about the crazy stuff that's going on in the world right now. It's just like,
Right.
but it's got to be through my eyes. And usually when I sit down and write something, if the first punchline that comes into my head, I throw it away instantly because I'm like, well, that's the first one that would come to any comedian's head, right?
Right.
What's my specific point of view on this particular topic? And if I don't have one, there's no sense talking about it. But the other thing, let's not forget one of the most important parts of me putting out albums is being able to pay tribute to all my favorite bands with the artwork and packaging.
Yeah,
And
you're way ahead of me because you're a pro.
okay, no, I didn't mean to
The
move you.
album, no, 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 no. So actually, the album cover will be part of the artwork, so people can look at it right away too. So please expand it on now because it's a great cover.
Yeah, the album's called No Sleep Till McSorley's, and so for people who've never been to McSorley's Old Ale House in New York City, it's the oldest pub in New York, and I've been going there for decades, just as a place to like meet up with friends, so you don't lose touch over the years, And it's my favorite drinking establishment in the world, and we were sitting in there one day, having some McSorley's ales. And I was thinking about, I got to record a new album. I'm thinking I might do it in Vegas. I might do it here. And then, as we're talking, I'm like looking around. I'm like, wait a minute, I should just do it right here.
I think it's
And
great.
they've never done performances there, but I said, we could, I was with all the guys who worked on my albums anyway. Those are my drinking buddies. So I said, we could build a stage here. And I wanted to do a Motorhead parody. So I think No Sleep Till Hammersmith, No Sleep Till McSorley's. I got the owner of McSorley's on the phone,
Yeah.
asked her if she'd be cool if I did it and how much would it cost me to rent out the place to do it. And she said, how long you been coming here? I said, about 30 years. She goes, you paid enough. And she
That's
let me
crazy.
have the whole place for free. And then I was like, ooh, I'd love to use the Motorhead font for my name. So I texted Motorhead's manager, Todd Singerman, who's an awesome guy, and he said, whatever you want. I had a couple more beers and whatever you want. All right. How about can I use the original artwork from No Sleep Till Hammersmith? And he wrote back, done. I'll get you, the original artwork and
I
have
can't
fun.
believe that it was just okay that easy. When I read that, I was like, because that just feels like it's like, it's like Mount Rushmore of rock. I mean, that's a huge thing to be like, all right.
I believe me. I was just going for it though, And then the last piece of the puzzle was texting Phil Campbell from Motorhead and asking
Yeah.
him to do the guitar intro and outro. And so, literally in an hour of day drinking, I had this entire concept, and I renegotiated my Metal Blade deal. So, there's a lot you can do in an hour day drinking.
That's that's some productive drinking. I mean, you really gotta. That's your next. That should be your next topic to talk about. Your day drinking. I think it's
Yeah.
great that you use a club like that because you could have gone anywhere. You could have used. You have some built-in audiences with Metal Show. You could have done the cruise ship. You could have done something, I mean, you talked about the cruise jokes, so the Disney thing is pretty funny. On the record,
Yeah.
but you could have used that audience. It would have been like an easier crowd for you. I like the fact you did something else that it was a home base, but it wasn't a given. You know what I mean? It was kind of down and dirty and real.
Yeah, well, no, thanks. For me, the setting is just as important. And for people, for people who are not rock or metal fans, it's not important that they understand the packaging and the artwork.
No,
What's important is that everybody can laugh on what's inside. So people who aren't into the scene, I don't want people to think, oh, it's all rock humor. It's not. It's a little bit of everything. If you get the humor of the packaging, that's fine. But if you don't, what's inside is what's real important. And like I said, because I want this stuff to appeal to a wide audience. So I don't, in that sense, I don't want to just be in front of rock people or comedy club people or whatever. This is for everybody.
I think the music you talk about, yeah, anybody would know about it at all. Anyhow, I mean, I'm mostly a music audience because I do, but I do think it could go anywhere. And I think you could blend on with any kind of comedians. It does feel like comedy that has gotten a little not clicky, but it feels like it's gotten huge. But it's got like groups, like packs of comedians now. It used to be like feel like it was like a wilderness, and now there's like there's different groups of them now online and with podcasts and groups. You know what I'm saying? Is
Yeah.
that does that cause a challenge like going on tour and opening? Does it kind of like keep everybody kind of together, or is everybody open to other new acts
I,
just crossing?
you know what? I just do my thing, Sean. Honestly, at this point in my career, if I'm still here and I'm still doing it, I have my own method to my madness. Everybody else has theirs. When I first started doing comedy, there was, I guess Comedy Central was just kind of starting to do specials.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a really big name to do an HBO special. And then other than that, you do Letterman or Leno, or you're on Saturday Night Live. And I didn't fit really into any of those. SNL, which is obviously, an iconic show, whatever you think about it now. But I don't do characters. I don't do impressions. I'm not a sketch comic. So yeah, I didn't waste any time trying to fit into that world. I
Yeah,
wasn't, the stand-up shows. I'm a nightclub act. I didn't really
right.
and I auditioned for all those and stuff, and I had some good sets, but I followed my own path. And to think when I started doing this 24 plus years ago, that the thing that most people would know me from is talking about music with two of my best friends on VH1 Classic. I could not have predicted that in a million years, and I'm grateful for what it's brought me.
It's great. No, I was just thinking like almost like a package deal, like with bands version. If you're like independent, and some bands, your comedians are friends. There's like bands always packaged together. It might be hard to tour with some other bands because they're always touring together. That's what I mean. Not like I was trying to like, be like controversial. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
just the world's different with like these comedy packs. As we wrap up to know we're on a little schedule here, moving forward, your tour. What we got going on for people to check out to see you and support you and what's going on besides the album coming out on the album the 19th? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, April 19th.
April 19th. You can pre-order it now on all your favorite streaming services. And then at my live shows, I'll have CDs. And then sometime in the summer, I'll have vinyl as well. I'm a big physical product guy, and I know there's a lot of us out there. So
Yeah.
if you want physical product, come out and see one of my shows. Just follow me on all my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, X, all that stuff. And I list all
Mhm.
my upcoming gigs. And yeah, that's about it, man. I'm just psyched for this record to come out, and I appreciate all the support. And yeah, just having my stuff on Metal Blade means the world to me, man. So
It's one of
um,
the coolest labels.
yeah,
Oh,
we've had a good run.
sorry. Last thing, that metal. You have new episodes coming out too. The fans that are like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Oh yes, with that metal show. Well,
God forbid we forget that. I mean, they'll be like,
no, well, yeah, well, everything comes back, right? I mean, bell bottoms came back, lots of things always come back into style. So I can't imagine me, Jim, and Eddie will come back into style, but anything's possible. But something to tide people over is we're doing a thing called That Rocks on YouTube. Myself, Jim Florentine, Eddie
"Yeah,
Trunk. So go to YouTube at That Rocks, And we got about 25 episodes up there. We just did one recently with Mark Tornillo, the singer of Accept. But we've had Glenn Hughes on, and David Coverdale, and Corey Taylor, and a whole wide range of people.
Good
So you
ones.
can catch up on those interviews, and lots more to come.
I will put all the links for that show and all the other stuff underneath the podcast and the YouTube channel. It'll be all there. People will click on it and go right to it.
I appreciate you making the time for me, and we'll do it again for album 6, I hope.
I'd love it.